Another strike against the close combat Carnifex is that it has sort of like a couple banes. First is, even if you have like a tooled up Carnifex with all the right stuff, it can only get probably maybe 4 or 5 wounds. It's lucky to get 4 or 5 wounds on that combat, and what the problem is, you're always looking for that hidden power fist in there in that squad that's in that kill zone, but not in base to base. So the guy gets to remove, the base to base guys, and then he still gets to strike back because your Carnifex is initiative 1, even if it's initiative 2. You're hoping you get to kill all that, which is not likely. So maybe if you have other friends, other broods in the game, some type of thing like that, kill that hidden power fist that's going to take down your Carnifex in retaliation in close combat. But the Carnifex is so slow that it's really hard to get it to that precise, maneuver it correctly on the tabletop, and then get the, attack the correct, number of models and the correct guy and the correct kill zone to really be effective as a close combat Carnifex. That's another reason shooty Carnifexes are better, in my opinion. Okay. That being said, Carnifex does have many strengths in close combat. Very high toughness, very high strength. Able to insta kill, or instant death, a lot of units, and it has a lot of potentials. But for those reasons, it has a lot of weaknesses in close combat. So next part is pretty much the Carnifexes really need to know what their specialized role is. It's every army has a specific role for everything. In the Tyrannid army, everything is extremely specialized, and it goes with the fluff too, that they're bioengineered to serve a specific role. Nothing else, nothing more. And if you actually treat them that way, amazing enough, you treat the models in the game as like the fluff. That usually doesn't match up as well as everyone would hope, but in the Tyrannid army, it actually turns out really well. Okay, so what we've done now is we've narrowed down the Carnifex to pretty much a shooting role as our primary role to get the most effectiveness out of it. I will go over close combat Carnifexes, but I really don't think they should be used in the heavy support slot. You can use them in an elite slot, though they tend to get beat up pretty bad, and honestly, in just games of 1,500 points or less, Carnifexes that are close combat oriented really are not worth the money and or the point cost, in my opinion. And you should really stick to a shooting Carnifex. They're meant to be tanks, so let them be those mobile organic tanks, alright, with lots of firepower. But so let's go on to the breakdowns of all the Carnifexes. Alright, let's think about this. Let's think, first we're going to do the elite. We're going to talk about elite Carnifexes in games of pretty much 15,000 points or less. You can have an elite Carnifex. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about that. Alright, so let's talk about a pure close combat Carnifex in the elite slot. Wow, okay, so we only have a variable number of points to work with. So we have about like 115. That's the max for it to be an elite Carnifex. So let's look at our weapon symbiotes, okay? Okay, well, our close combat weapon symbiotes are, pretty much 3 things. There are 4, but we're going to narrow it down to 3 because Crushing Claws, you can have Crushing Claws, but you can't have any other significant biomorphs. And D6, and you'd have to take Rending Claws with them, and that combination is just, pretty much ridiculous because you trade in your 2 basic attacks for D6 attacks, and there's just no real potential gain, and the Rending Claws really don't do anything for you, okay, with that. So we're going to throw that out the table as is. Next, you have to consider, you have Scything Talons and Lash Whips. We're going to throw out Rending Claws just because they're there's such a high toughness. He's already a monstrous creature. He's already ignoring it. And so we're going to throw Rending Claws out the table because you're losing 3/4 of the ability of the card. Okay, for close combat elite Carnifexes, you have to think what are the weapon symbiotes, and then you have Scything Talons, Rending Claws, Lash Whips, and Crushing Claws. First, we're going to eliminate Crushing Claws. Why? Because it's a hell of a lot of points, and you'd have to equip it with Rending Claws. Is the only other configuration for to have an elite Carnifex in that slot, and for that you're trading in your attacks for D6 attacks, which is terrible, and for an elite Carnifex, when you could have 2 Scything Talons, have base 4 attacks, 5 on the charge, and that the steadiness of that for an elite Carnifex is key. Okay, and for elite Carnifex, so we're going to throw out Crushing Claws at the Rending Claws, or we're going to throw them out on a Carnifex for close combat. Why? Because the fact that a monstrous creature, which the Carnifex is, ignores armor saves already in close combat. So Rending, pretty much, that's what the reason you buy Rending. If it's not a monstrous creature, you want it to be able to, get some of those like power weapon hits, basically ignoring armor saves. So there's no reason in that, and it already has a super high toughness. So hitting vehicles and everything like that is not a problem because it's already getting 2d6 plus strength 9 or 10 depending if you have venom, toxin sacs. So we're just going to throw that out the table. So we've eliminated 2. So that leaves us with Scything Talons and Lash Whips. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about, so we're left with Lash Whips and Scything Talons. Basically, the Scything Talon Lash Whip combo is fairly tempting and all, but we're basically going to rule out Lash Whips for the reason sort of it's a defensive biomorph, and there are not many units that have that extra attack and as a base, and pretty much for the same reason. Sorry guys, I'm trying to get my thoughts together, but for the same reason that there are plenty of units, it's going to subtract 1 attack from models and base to base, but the model we're worrying about is that hidden power fist or similar type of weapon that's going to be able to kill our Carnifex. Okay, and obviously any smart player is not going to be able to not putting that in base to base contact, so it'll be removed first if he's a really smart player. So the Lash Whip sort of do its effectiveness, but any real player that's smart knows that a Carnifex on the charge is not going to, they're going to place their models appropriately so they have that hidden power fist to be able to take down a Carnifex after it's killed what's in its kill zone, or somewhat in its kill zone, and be able to retaliate at initiative 1. So we're going to rule out that. So basically we're left with 2 Scything Talons as a process of elimination.